Alright, so today we're going to do some practice problems with Boolean algebra. I'll be working a few of the problems on this worksheet that you all were given yesterday. You will want to have these rules in front of you. I will be referring to these rules by the number out beside them as I go and do these problems. So the very first problem I want to do on here is I'll just start off with problem number 1 right here. And number 1 says that A naught B or A B, and then we're going to equal to X. We're going to simplify that down. So the first thing I do is I factor. It's pretty much the first step always with Boolean algebra. And both of these have B in common. So I'm going to factor out B, which leaves me with A naught or A. Now I tend to use brackets and parentheses independently, interchangeably. It doesn't really mean anything, so don't make it mean anything. Okay, so now this A naught or A is actually following rule number 8. If you take a look at your sheet, you see that A naught or A is the exact same thing as 1. So now I have 1B equals X. Now that's going to follow rule number 2, which says that 1 and X equals X, so 1 and B equals B. And there's my answer for number 1. Alright, the next problem I'm going to do is number 3. Okay, and that one is A, B, C. This is sort of a silly one. You would never really pull this off of the truth table, but every now and then you might find something like this. Basically, for this one, I'm using the commutative laws, and I'm just going to rearrange this in alphabetical order. And then I'm going to use rule number 3 and turn A and A into just A, and B into B, and then C drops down, and there's my answer. Alright, the next one I'm going to do is number 4, and that one is X, Y, Z, or X, Y. Now, this one's a good one because there's a little interesting trick on there. When you factor, it's tempting to say, oh, there's an X in every one, pull it out. Whenever you factor, you want to pull out the most terms possible. So both of these terms have X and Y in common. So you will factor those out, which leaves you with Z or 1. Do not forget the 1. You can't just pull it out and drop it out. For example, if you have 2 or 8, and you're going to factor out 2, that would be 2 is equal to 1 plus 4. That's not equal to 2 times 4. Those are two completely different answers. So this is what you're doing here. You're factoring out the X and Y, which leaves you 1. This actually goes back to rule number 2, as far as that's concerned. Okay, now this right here is rule number 6 again. So that turns into 1. The minute you put a 1 in an OR gate, you get a 1, and we have X, Y, 1. And then using rule number 2, that means we just simply have X and Y. Alright, the next one I want to do is problem number 6. Problem number 6, we have A or A naught B equals X. And this one I picked because it's just basically straight off the rule sheet. If you take a look at it, this is number 13A. And that's X or X naught. And that turns into A or B equals X. Alright, the next one I want to do, I want to pick a real good one here, and I'm going to do number 12. And so for number 12, what we have here is A or A, B not C, or A, B. So I look to see if they have 3 things in common, they don't. I look to see if they have 2 things in common, they don't. I look to see if they have 1 thing in common, and they do. So I factor out the A. Remember, I can't just drop that term. I have to put a 1 in to hold the place. B not C or B. The minute you put a 1 into an OR gate, according to rule number 6, Your output is a 1, so this is A1, which gives me just simply A. All right, flipping over to the other side of the worksheet right here. I'm going to do a couple of these. I'm going to do number 16. This is what most of our Boolean algebra simplification is going to end up looking like. We have A, B, C, or A naught, B naught, C, or A naught, B, C. And I'm going to simplify that. So I look to see if they have 3 things in common. They don't. I look to see if they have 2 things in common. They do. They actually have a couple of terms. I'm going to start with B and C because that one just popped out as being most obvious for me. So I'm going to do a little bit of a rearranging, and I'm going to pull the A naught, B naught, C over first and just drop it straight down. I'm going to factor out BC, which leaves me with A or A naught. According to rule number 8, that is a 1. So that turns into A naught, B naught, C, or BC 1. And then according to rule number 2, that's A naught, B naught, C, or BC. Then I look to see if they have anything in common, and they both have C in common, so I factor out the C. I'm going to just rearrange this, so I have B or B naught C. I can do the rearranging because of the commutative law. This right here follows rule number, drum roll, 13A. And I wrote that down wrong. And that actually follows rule 13C. And that turns into C is B or A naught. And then I multiply through. See if there's any other simplification I can do. There isn't, so that means this is my simplest term. The reason why this is the simplest is that it only uses 3 gates, an AND gate, an OR gate, and a NOT gate. This one uses 4, 2 ANDs, an OR, and a NOT. And then the last one I'm going to do for our example problem today is number 14 on that worksheet, which is A, B naught, C, or A, B, C naught, or A, B naught, C naught. This is very similar to number 16. First thing I do is I look for anything in common. There's a little gap right there you can't see. There I have A and B naught in common. I'm going to factor that out. This leaves me with C or C naught. And then I just drop down the A, B, C naught term. That right there is a 1 according to rule number 8. And then according to rule number 2, when you have 1, that turns into A, B naught, or A, B, C naught. Then I look and see what I can factor out in common. They both have A in common. I pull that out. That gives me B naught or B, C naught. That is rule number 13D. And that means it's A, B naught, or C naught. I remultiply through. I see there's no other simplification I can do, so I would go back right here, and this is my simplest term. Okay, I know I went through those pretty fast, but it is a video, so you can stop and pause and rearrange and go back and watch them again, but there's a nice little sampling. Just a friendly warning, this is simplified. It does not equal 1. That's as far as you can go. Same thing with this. It also does not equal 1. That's a really common mistake people tend to make. Once you hit here, you've gone as far as you can go. Don't forget that whenever you factor something out, you can't just pull the whole term out. You have to put a 1 in to hold the place.